Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some pretty intense stuff,
Yeah.
like some really thought-provoking stuff.
Hmm.
Um, we're going to be talking about the function of education and uh, and the very nature of life itself.
Big questions.
Yeah, the big questions exactly. And we're going to be exploring all this through the lens of one single source,
That's right.
one incredibly insightful thinker.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Hit me.
Jiddu Krishnamurti.
I think I've heard that name before.
You might have heard of him. I don't know how.
Not a household name.
Yeah, he's not exactly a household name, but his ideas have influenced people all over the world.
Interesting.
So we're going to be looking at his book, Think on These Things,
All right.
and just kind of unpacking what he has to say about these really big, important topics. I'm
So
excited.
I'm excited too. I gotta admit, when I first picked up this book, I was a little intimidated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know, maybe it was his intense gaze on the cover.
He's got these really piercing eyes, and he's just staring right at you.
I can see that being a little bit intimidating.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
once you get past that, once you start reading his words,
Right.
there's some seriously relatable wisdom in here.
I found that too, and one of the things that really struck me about him was that he became this world-renowned teacher, right? This incredible thinker that people all over the world looked up to.
Mm-hmm.
But he actively discouraged people from following him,
Oh, wow.
or any other guru for that matter.
Really?
He didn't want to be put on a pedestal.
Mm.
He believed that true understanding comes from looking inward, not outward,
Okay.
from self-discovery.
That's so interesting. Like he's saying, don't just take my word for it. Go figure things out for yourself.
Exactly. And that really ties into his whole philosophy of education.
Okay. I'm curious to hear more about that.
Well, he believed that the real purpose of education is to help us understand the whole process of living,
Okay.
not just how to make a living.
So not just to get a job.
Right? It's bigger than that.
It makes you wonder, right? Why are we really going to school, or why are we sending our kids to school?
Yeah.
Is it just about getting a good job, or is there something more to it?
It's a good question to ask ourselves, and Krishnamurti definitely argued that while having a job is necessary, of course it shouldn't be the sole focus of our existence. Like,
Yeah.
it's just one part of this much larger tapestry of life.
I love that. I love that analogy. And he actually says, surely life is not merely a job, an occupation. Life is something extraordinarily wide and profound.
That's a great quote.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like he's urging us to zoom out
Mm-hmm.
and look at the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
Life is this vast, mysterious realm, and we're missing out if we're just laser focused on our careers.
I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling,
Yeah.
especially these days, when it's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and grind,
Totally.
to just be constantly striving for the next thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for Krishnamurti, this is where education comes in.
Right.
He's not talking about, memorizing facts and figures, though.
Right.
He's talking about developing our intelligence in a much broader sense.
By intelligence, he doesn't just mean, book smarts.
Okay.
He's talking about the capacity to think freely and fearlessly, to question everything,
Mm-hmm.
and to figure out what's true for ourselves.
Okay, I'm starting to see where he's going with this. It's about becoming independent thinkers, not just absorbing information passively.
Exactly. And that leads into another really big idea from the book, the idea of freedom from fear.
Okay.
Krishnamurti believed that fear is one of the biggest obstacles
To what?
to real learning
Mm-hmm.
and to truly living a full life
So fear is holding us back.
in a big way.
Wow. He actually says most of us have fear in one form or another, and where there's fear, there's no intelligence.
It's a powerful statement.
It really is. It's like he's saying that fear blocks our ability to think clearly
Mm-hmm.
and make good choices.
Yeah, it kind of clouds our judgment,
Yeah.
prevents us from seeing things clearly.
So we need to ask ourselves,
Right.
what are we afraid of?
What are we afraid of? How is fear holding us back? And how can we create an environment both internally and externally that's free from that kind of fear?
Because if we're constantly afraid, Krishnamurti says, we just end up conforming
Yeah,
to what society or our parents or teachers tell us to do.
it's the easy route,
It is the easy route, the safe route.
but it's not really living.
It's not really living, it's just going through the motions.
He contrasts that with truly living, which he defines as to find out for yourself what is true.
Okay, hold on. I gotta process this for a second.
Sure.
He's saying we're supposed to question everything we've been taught
Mm-hmm.
and figure out what's true for ourselves.
That's the challenge.
That seems like a lot of work.
It can be. But Krishnamurti believed it's the only way to break free from the limitations of our conditioning
Mm-hmm.
and to discover who we really are.
Okay. I'm starting to see why people find his ideas so compelling. It's not just about, learning facts and figures.
Right.
It's about developing the courage to question everything,
Yeah.
to think for ourselves,
To be critical thinkers.
to be critical thinkers, exactly,
Yeah.
and to create our own understanding of the world.
And that kind of learning doesn't end when we graduate from high school or college.
Right.
It's a lifelong process.
It's ongoing.
Right. It's a lifelong process of observation, reflection, and questioning.
So where do we even begin with all of this?
Well, Krishnamurti suggests that we start by looking inward,
Okay.
by cultivating self-knowledge.
Self-knowledge, okay.
And he says one of the most effective ways to do this is by paying attention to our relationships.
Our relationships. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we learn so much about ourselves through our interactions with others.
Absolutely.
Right.
Krishnamurti encourages us to look at our relationships in the same way we look in a mirror.
Okay.
When we see ourselves in a mirror, we see, how we look, right?
Right.
Our relationships can reflect back to us who we are on a much deeper level.
I like that.
It's a powerful image.
Yeah, so by observing how we interact with others, our family, our friends, our colleagues, we can gain a deeper understanding of our own nature, our reactions, our tendencies.
It's like holding up a mirror to our soul.
I love that. And what about happiness? I mean, isn't that something we all strive for?
Of course.
Yeah.
But Krishnamurti makes it very clear that lasting happiness isn't something we can find by chasing external things.
Okay.
It's not about possessions. It's not about achievements. It's not even about relationships.
Oh, so he's saying those things can bring us temporary joy.
Yeah, they can bring us moments of happiness.
Right.
But true lasting happiness comes from somewhere else.
So it comes from within.
Exactly. He argues that real happiness comes from a deep understanding of ourselves.
Okay.
It arises when we break free from those desires and attachments that keep us constantly wanting more.
So it's about finding contentment from within rather than seeking it from external sources.
That's the key.
I could see how that would be so liberating. But it also seems incredibly challenging in our current culture.
It definitely goes against the grain.
It does.
We're constantly bombarded with messages about, buying more, achieving more, being more.
Yeah.
But Krishnamurti challenges us to question all of that.
To step outside of that.
Yeah, and he even uses the analogy of a flowing river to illustrate this point.
Okay, I love a good analogy.
He says, life is like a river endlessly moving on ever-seeking, exploring, pushing, overflowing its banks, penetrating every crevice with its water.
Wow, that's beautiful.
He's saying that life is constantly changing, constantly in flux.
Yeah.
And we need to learn to flow with it.
I love that analogy.
It's so vivid.
It is.
Yeah.
But I can also see how that impermanence
Yeah.
could be scary for some people.
Right.
It makes you want to grab onto something solid, something predictable.
And that's exactly what Krishnamurti says we do. Right. He says, the mind sees that it is dangerous, risky to live in a state of impermanency, insecurity, so it builds a wall around itself. The wall of tradition, of organized religion, of political and social theories.
So we create these structures and beliefs to give ourselves a sense of security, but they end up boxing us in.
It's a paradox, isn't it?
It is.
We seek security, but end up feeling trapped.
Exactly.
And Krishnamurti suggests that instead of resisting the flow of life, we should embrace change.
Okay.
And let go of those attachments that keep us tethered to the past.
He's saying we need to step out of that stagnant pool and into the rushing current of life.
That's a great way to put it.
Where we can truly experience what it means to be alive.
Yeah, to be fully present.
To be fully present, yeah.
Engaged, alive.
Okay, now that's a powerful image.
It really speaks to the kind of freedom Krishnamurti's talking about.
Which is?
The freedom that comes from letting go of our need for control and security and allowing ourselves to be fully present in the moment.
Oh, that's deep.
This is all pretty deep stuff.
It is. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, to be honest.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, my mind is already swirling with questions.
That's a good thing.
It is.
It means you're engaging with the ideas.
Okay.
You're letting them sink in.
I am, but I'm also feeling a little overwhelmed. This is heavy stuff.
I hear you, but that's the beauty of Krishnamurti's work.
Okay.
It's meant to challenge us, to push us outside our comfort zones, and to help us see the world in a new light.
Well, I'm definitely ready to see where this deep dive takes us next.
Me too. We're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more to explore in Krishnamurti's philosophy.
Well, for those of you listening, hang in there with us. We're about to delve even deeper into some of Krishnamurti's most provocative ideas.
We're going to be talking about desire, ambition, the pursuit of success, all that good stuff.
All the things that make life interesting.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about how Krishnamurti encourages us to embrace the flow of life, let go of attachments, and find happiness from within. And now I'm kind of curious to know more about his views on love.
Right.
It seems like that would fit right into his philosophy of self-discovery and inner peace.
Absolutely, it does. And, when you think about love, especially in our culture,
Yeah.
it's often portrayed as this, intense, almost overwhelming emotion.
Right, lots of drama.
Yeah, but Krishnamurti had a totally different take on it.
Really? How so?
Well, for him, love wasn't about butterflies in your stomach or needing someone to complete you.
Okay.
He saw it as a state of being, a quality that arises from self-knowledge and understanding.
So it's not about finding someone to make you happy, but about finding happiness within yourself first.
Exactly. He believed that true love isn't possessive or dependent. It doesn't demand anything in return.
Okay.
He actually asks a really thought-provoking question in the book.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
He says, when there is that kind of love, is there anger?
Wow, that's a great question to reflect on.
It is, isn't it?
I mean, think about your own relationships. Are you truly loving,
mean-
or are you just trying to get your own needs met?
Right. Are you looking for someone to fill a void within you?
Yeah.
That's the kind of self-reflection Krishnamurti encourages.
Right.
He challenges us to ask those tough questions.
Yeah.
Because for him, when you love someone or something with your whole being without expecting anything back, that's when you experience love in its purest form.
Wow. That's a powerful concept,
Yeah.
but also, I imagine, a very challenging one to put into practice.
It is. It definitely takes work.
So how does love in this pure form actually impact our lives and the world around us?
Well, Krishnamurti believed that this kind of love is a transformative force.
Okay.
It has the power to heal relationships and contribute to a more peaceful society.
So it's not just about feeling good, it's about actively creating positive change.
Exactly, and it all ties back to his concept of order.
Order. Okay.
He writes, what brings about this order in life? It is really a very important point, and I think that if one could be educated to discover the factor that produces order, it would have great significance.
So he's suggesting that order doesn't come from external rules or laws, but from within.
Right. He believed that when we cultivate this kind of love within ourselves, it naturally radiates outwards, creating harmony and order in our relationships and in the world around us.
I like that. And that leads us to another important theme in Krishnamurti's teachings,
Okay.
the importance of simplicity.
Simplicity.
Okay, so how does simplicity tie into all of this?
Well, Krishnamurti believed that a simpler life, one that's free from excessive desires and attachments, allows for greater clarity, peace, and joy.
Okay, so it's not about living in a bare-bones shack and owning nothing.
No, not at all. It's much deeper than that.
So it's more of an internal state than an external lifestyle.
Exactly right. It is a great art to have an abundance of knowledge and experience, to know the richness of life, the beauty of existence, the struggles, the miseries, the laughter, the tears, and yet keep your mind very simple.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
But it's a good mouthful.
It's a good mouthful.
Like he's saying, you can experience all that life has to offer without getting bogged down by it.
Right.
You can have a rich inner world without needing tons of external stuff.
That's a great way to put it. It's about freeing yourself from the clutter of anxieties and desires that cloud your thinking.
Right.
That prevent you from seeing clearly.
Yeah, this is resonating with me so much. I think we've all felt that sense of overwhelm at times.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're being pulled in a million different directions.
Absolutely. And Krishnamurti would say that a lot of that overwhelm comes from our attachment to things that are constantly changing.
Right.
Remember his point about impermanence?
Yes. He said, life is not what we would like it to be. Life is not permanent at all. It's that river analogy again, right? We're clinging to the banks while the water is rushing past us.
Exactly. And Krishnamurti encourages us to embrace that impermanence,
Right.
to see it not as something to fear, but as an opportunity for growth and transformation.
To be like the water itself.
Yeah.
Flowing freely, adapting to the changing landscape.
I love that.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So if everything is always changing, How do we find any sense of stability or grounding in our lives?
That's the paradox, isn't it?
It is.
Krishnamurti would say that true stability comes not from clinging to external things, but from finding that stillness within ourselves.
So it's about shifting our focus from the external to the internal, from trying to control the world around us to cultivating a sense of peace within.
Exactly.
But how do we actually do that? How do we find that stillness when it feels like everything is constantly in motion?
That's the real work. And it's something we'll continue to explore as we delve further into Krishnamurti's ideas.
Okay, sounds good to me. Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to something you said earlier about simplicity and freedom from desire.
Right.
Because I'm thinking, isn't some level of ambition necessary to achieve anything in life? Like, wouldn't we just stagnate if we weren't striving for anything?
That's a great question, and it's one that Krishnamurti addresses directly in the book.
Okay, good.
He challenges the traditional idea of success, arguing that our obsession with achievement and recognition can actually lead to emptiness and sorrow.
So he's not saying ambition is inherently bad,
No.
but he's cautioning us against blindly pursuing success without questioning what it truly means for us.
Right. He writes, with the achievement of great success, there is also great sorrow. It's a thought-provoking statement
It is.
that makes us reconsider what we're really striving for.
So what's the alternative?
Yeah.
If we're not supposed to chase success, what should we be aiming for?
Krishnamurti suggests that true fulfillment comes from aligning our actions with our values, from pursuing what we love, and from contributing to something larger than ourselves.
It's about finding that sweet spot where passion, purpose, and service intersect.
Exactly. And he also emphasizes the importance of humility.
Humility. Oh,
Not the kind of false humility where you downplay your accomplishments, but a genuine humility that arises from letting go of the need to be someone to achieve something or to be better than others.
okay, so true humility.
True humility.
He actually writes, when the mind is very quiet, listening timelessly to everything that is happening, you may listen to these words, but for happiness to be, you have to find out how to free the mind of all fear. He's saying that true happiness, that sense of peace and contentment, comes from a quiet mind,
Right.
a mind that's free from fear and the constant chatter of desire.
It's a beautiful image.
It is.
And it speaks to the transformative power of stillness.
Yes.
But I think we're starting to get ahead of ourselves. Let's delve deeper into the nature of desire and how it relates to suffering in our next segment.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm ready to explore that further, and listeners, I hope you are too. Okay, so we're back and ready to kind of unpack some of Krishnamurti's most challenging ideas
All right.
about desire,
Yeah.
ambition, greed, all that stuff.
Fun stuff?
Yeah, the fun stuff. Before the break, we were talking about how true fulfillment doesn't necessarily come from achieving those external goals,
Right.
but from aligning our actions with our values.
Aligning our actions with our values,
Yeah,
exactly.
it got me thinking, are we all just slaves to our desires?
It's a good question.
Is there any way to break free from that cycle?
Well, Krishnamurti definitely had some strong opinions about desire.
Okay.
He called it the desire for the more
The more.
and saw it as the root of so much conflict,
Okay.
both within ourselves and, in the world at large.
So it's not just about wanting a new pair of shoes or
Yeah.
a fancy car.
It's deeper than that.
He's talking about a deeper kind of desire.
Exactly. He's talking about that insatiable hunger
Okay.
for more possessions, more power, more status, the kind of hunger that never seems to be satisfied.
Yeah, you can never get enough.
You can never get enough. And he writes, the desire to become a great man, a great saint, a great this or that has no end and therefore no fulfillment. Its demand is ever for the more, and such desire always breeds agony, misery, wars.
Wow.
It's a pretty bleak picture.
Yeah, it's a little heavy.
But I think there's a lot of truth to it.
It makes you wonder, are we all just chasing after things that will ultimately leave us feeling empty?
It's a risk, isn't it?
It is a risk, yeah.
Krishnamurti would say that that's a real danger.
Okay.
He believed that this constant striving for more often comes at the expense of, our well-being, our relationships, and even our sense of purpose.
So what's the alternative?
Right.
If we're not supposed to chase success and accumulate more,
Mm-hmm.
what should we be focusing on?
Well, he emphasizes the importance of understanding ourselves, our true nature, and the interconnectedness of all things.
Okay.
And he suggests that fulfillment comes from living in alignment with those values, not from achieving some arbitrary external goal.
I'm trying to grasp this idea. So instead of striving to become something we're not,
Mm-hmm.
we should focus on understanding and accepting who we are right now.
Exactly. He writes, similarly, if I am stupid and I say I must become intelligent, the effort to become intelligent is only a greater form of stupidity because what is important is to understand stupidity.
Okay, that's a bit of a mind bender.
It is. It's a pretty radical idea.
It's very radical.
Especially in our culture. You
Yeah.
know, we're constantly bombarded with messages about self-improvement.
Always be better.
Always be better, always be striving for more.
Yeah.
But Krishnamurti's like, whoa, hold on a second.
Take a step back.
Let's re-examine this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's incredibly liberating when you think about
It's
it.
liberating, yeah.
Like he's saying, stop trying to fix yourself. Just be who you are.
But wouldn't that lead to complacency?
It's a good question.
Wouldn't we just stagnate if we weren't striving to grow and evolve?
That's a valid concern, and Krishnamurti acknowledges that.
Okay.
But he distinguishes between healthy growth
Okay.
and the kind of striving that comes from a place of lack or insecurity.
Right, so there's a difference.
There's a difference, and he believes that true happiness and fulfillment arise not from achieving some external goal,
Okay.
but from a state of inner peace and contentment.
So it's about finding that inner peace first and letting our actions flow from that place of contentment.
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus from becoming to being.
Being okay.
And that's a process that requires a lot of self-awareness.
Yeah.
And honesty. You
Right.
know, we need to be willing to look at our desires, our motivations, our fears without judgment.
So it's not about suppressing our desires, but about understanding them.
Right. Krishnamurti believed that when we see the truth of something, when we truly understand the nature of desire, for example, there's no need to control it or fight against it.
It just is.
It naturally falls away.
Okay, but we can't just ignore our basic needs, right?
Right.
We still need food, shelter, clothing.
Of course.
How does Krishnamurti address that?
Well, he makes a clear distinction between need and greed.
Okay, need versus greed.
He acknowledges that we have basic needs, but he challenges us to be mindful of when those needs cross the line into wanting more than we truly need.
Right.
He writes, through greed, the mind uses the objects of need as a means of self-advancement. It's a very simple process if you observe it.
So it's about being aware of our motivations and asking ourselves, do I really need this, or am I just trying to fill some kind of void within myself?
Exactly. Krishnamurti believed that true contentment comes not from accumulating more and more, but from appreciating what we have and living in harmony with the natural world.
It's about simplifying.
Simplifying, yeah.
You know, this all ties back to what he said about freedom.
Mm-hmm.
True freedom isn't about doing whatever we want,
Right.
but about breaking free from those inner constraints.
Those inner chains.
Yeah, they keep us trapped in patterns of self-destructive behavior.
He writes, so freedom lies not in trying to become something different, nor in doing whatever you happen to feel like doing, nor in following the authority of tradition, of your parents, of your guru, but in understanding what you are from moment to moment.
It's about self-awareness, understanding our conditioning, and making choices that are aligned with our true values.
It's about becoming conscious creators of our own lives.
Rather than reacting to our desires and fears.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important point Krishnamurti makes. Finding meaning and purpose in life.
Okay, so how does that fit into everything we've been talking about?
Well, Krishnamurti believed that each of us has a unique contribution to make to the world.
Okay.
And that finding that contribution is an essential part of living a fulfilling life.
So it's not just about finding inner peace.
Right.
It's also about finding our place in the world
Mm-hmm.
and making a difference.
He encourages us to find what we love, to pursue it with passion, and to use our talents and abilities to make a positive impact.
To leave the world a little bit better than we found it.
Exactly, he writes. So it is a basic function of education to help you to find out what you really love to do so that you can give your whole mind and heart to it, because that is the only way to be really happy.
He's saying that true happiness comes from finding work that is both meaningful and enjoyable work that allows us to express our creativity and contribute to something larger than ourselves.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your passion and your purpose align.
I love that.
Yeah.
This has been such an incredible deep dive.
It has been.
Krishnamurti's ideas are definitely challenging,
They are.
but they're also incredibly inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new perspective on life freedom and the pursuit of happiness.
Me too. His work is a constant reminder that the journey of self-discovery is a lifelong process.
Yeah.
One that requires courage, humility, and an unwavering commitment to truth.
And to everyone listening, we encourage you to keep questioning,
Yes.
keep exploring, and keep that flame of curiosity burning bright.
Because it's in that spirit of inquiry and open-mindedness that we discovered the true meaning and purpose of our lives.
So well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.